Have you ever heard a voice that just hits different? One of those voices that makes you stop whatever you're doing because it feels like the person singing knows what you're going through? No auto-tune. No flashy tricks. Just pure emotion. Well, back in the early 1960s, there was someone who had that kind of voice. And if you were around back then, or if you've ever listened to old school pop, you probably know the name. Connie Francis. She wasn't just a star. She was the voice of a whole generation. But here's the wild part, her big break? It almost didn't happen. Yeah. The girl who went on to sell millions of records, almost gave up before her career even started. In this video, I want to tell you the full story. We're going to go all the way back to her roots, the ups and downs she went through, and how she became one of the biggest female pop stars of the 1960s. We'll also talk about some tough moments in her life. The kind of stuff that doesn't make the headlines but tells you who a person really is. So if you've ever felt like giving up, or if you love those stories about people who kept going no matter what, this one's for you. Let's talk about Connie. So, Connie Francis was born in Newark, New Jersey. Her full name? Concetta Rosa Maria Franconero. It sounds like something out of a musical, right? She came from a big Italian-American family. Very close. Very traditional. And very musical. Her dad, he was her biggest supporter from the start. He saw something in her that others didn't. But not everyone in the music world was as convinced. She started young, performing on TV, talent shows, anything she could find. And she had that voice. Seriously, even as a teenager, people noticed. But the music industry? Not so much. She kept hearing no. Over and over again. Producers said she sounded too ethnic. Some thought her style was too dramatic. Others said, that's not what teenagers want right now. Ever been in that place where you're giving it your all, and people still don't see your worth? That was Connie. But she didn't quit. She kept going, even when it felt like the doors were closing on her. Now, here's where the story gets really interesting. It's 1957. Connie had been recording songs for MGM Records, but nothing was really catching on. Sales were low. Nothing was charting. And the label? They were ready to drop her. They gave her one more shot. One last song. After that, they'd be done. At that point, even Connie was thinking about walking away. But her dad? He wasn't having it. He told her, "You're going to record this one song." It was an old tune from the 1920s called, "Who's Sorry Now?" Connie thought it was outdated. She wasn't feeling it. But she did it anyway. And you know what? That song changed everything. In 1958, "Who's Sorry Now?" exploded. It became a top 10 hit in the US. And in the UK? It went all the way to number 1. Just like that, Connie Francis was everywhere. And the music world finally realized what they had missed. From there, she didn't slow down. Hit after hit, she just kept going. Lipstick on Your Collar. Stupid Cupid. Everybody's Somebody's Fool. Her songs were catchy, sure, but they had heart. They talked about real feelings. Real heartbreak. Real hope. The kind of stuff you don't forget. And she wasn't afraid to show emotion. That was part of what made her special. You could feel everything in her voice. But here's the thing that really made her stand out, she wasn't just sticking to English language pop. She recorded songs in Italian, Spanish, German, even Hebrew. Seriously, she could sing in so many languages, and her fans around the world loved her for it. She connected with people on a deeper level, no matter where they were from. Now, while all of that was happening in her music career, her personal life was a different story. Because even though she was famous, life behind the scenes was not always easy. She dealt with some really tough stuff. There were abusive relationships. There was the stress that comes with being constantly in the spotlight. And later in life, she went through a terrifying experience that almost ended her singing career for good. We'll get to that part in a minute, but just know, Connie wasn't just dealing with fame. She was fighting for her peace, too. And being a woman in the music industry back then? It wasn't easy. She had to fight for everything, her songs, her image, even her voice in meetings. It was a time when men made most of the decisions, and women were often told to smile and nod. But Connie didn't just smile. She spoke up. She stood her ground. And she kept going, even when it would have been easier to walk away. That's part of what makes her so legendary. She wasn't just talented. She was strong. And she was doing things that most artists weren't even thinking about yet. Like singing in different languages? Yeah, that was rare. Most pop stars stuck to English and played it safe. But Connie? She knew that music could reach people everywhere, and she wanted to be part of that. She didn't just want hits in America. She wanted to connect with the world. And she did. In fact, she became the first female artist to have a #1 hit in both the US and the UK at the same time. That kind of global success. Almost unheard of back then. Music historian Paul Gambaccini once said that Connie Francis was the bridge between the classic female singers of the 50s and the modern pop stars of the 60s. And honestly, he's right. She helped pave the way for artists like Brenda Lee, Dusty Springfield, even Madonna. And what's really cool? She didn't rely on gimmicks. No wild costumes. No viral drama. Just pure talent and honest music. Now let's take a moment and talk about something that's hard to talk about. Because while Connie Francis was out there making music that made people smile, laugh, cry, even fall in love, she was also carrying a pain most people couldn't see. This next part of her story, it's not easy. It's not glamorous. But it's real. And honestly, it's important. Because no matter how much fame or success someone has, life still finds a way to throw challenges at you. Sometimes really, really cruel ones. So let's go back to 1974. Connie had already been through so much by then. She had lived a full life in the spotlight. From being that wide-eyed young girl with a big voice to becoming one of the most successful pop stars of her era. She had traveled the world. She had performed for huge crowds. She had made her mark. But that year, after doing a show in New York, she checked into a hotel. Just a regular night, nothing out of the ordinary. She was probably tired. Maybe thinking about her next gig. Maybe looking forward to some quiet time. But then, something awful happened. That night, she was attacked in her hotel room. A place where she should have felt safe. A place where she should have been able to relax after doing what she loved. And just like that, her world changed. The details are horrifying. And no one should ever have to live through something like that. The physical pain, the emotional trauma, the fear, it stays with you. It lingers. It haunts. For Connie, it shook her to the core. She wasn't just a public figure now. She was a survivor of something deeply personal and deeply painful. And it wasn't just the attack itself. It was everything that came after. The healing. The silence. The people who didn't understand. The ones who judged. The ones who forgot. Because here's the thing, we often talk about survival like it's just getting through something. But it's not just about living through a traumatic event. It's about what happens after. It's about how you rebuild. How you cope. How you find a way to feel safe again. To feel whole again. Connie took time away from music after that. And honestly, who could blame her? When something so violating happens, your sense of trust is shattered. It's not just about getting back on stage, it's about feeling human again. And while she was trying to put the pieces back together, the music world was moving on. New faces were emerging. New styles were taking over. Disco was becoming huge. The sound of the 80s was starting to take shape. The charts weren't waiting. But her fans? The ones who had grown up with her voice, her songs, her spirit? They didn't forget. Because Connie had never just been a voice on the radio. She was a friend. A comfort. A companion through heartbreaks and late nights and lonely afternoons. And even though she stepped out of the spotlight for a while, her fans held that space for her. They waited. They hoped. They remembered. And when she came back, it wasn't with a flashy reinvention or a dramatic reinvention. It was just her. Connie. In the 1980s, she returned to performing. Slowly, carefully. But with purpose. She started recording again. Singing. Touring. She didn't hide from her past. She didn't pretend it didn't happen. Instead, she used her voice, not just to sing, but to speak. To share her story. To raise awareness about safety, trauma, and the importance of mental health. Because that's who she is. She's not just a survivor. She's a fighter. And she didn't let one horrific night define her. She still sang. She still showed up. She still loved music. She still believed in the power of her voice. And honestly, that takes more strength than any hit record ever could. So let's just take a pause here. Just for a moment. Think about everything she went through. Starting her career at a time when women were constantly underestimated. Getting rejected again and again before finally breaking through. Fighting to be taken seriously in a male-dominated industry. Being told what to wear, what to sing, how to act. Living under the pressure of fame. Of expectations. Of perfection. Dealing with abusive relationships. Health struggles. A deeply traumatic event that could have shattered her completely. And yet, she didn't quit. She didn't let the darkness define her. Instead, she became a symbol of resilience. Of strength. Of what it means to keep going, even when everything in you wants to give up. She's remembered not just for her voice, but for her courage. Not just for her songs, but for her story. And let's be honest, there are a lot of talented people in the world. But not all of them have that kind of inner fire. That kind of soul. That's why Connie's legacy still matters today. Even in a world that's constantly changing, where music trends shift every few months, where algorithms decide what goes viral, where image often matters more than substance, her story stands tall. Because it's not just about selling records or topping the charts. It's about honesty. It's about heart. It's about the kind of music that makes you feel something real. And it's about surviving, not just the industry, but life itself. So here's a question I want to ask you. Do you think someone like Connie Francis could make it today? In a world full of filters and followers, in a time where fast fame comes and goes, would someone with her voice, her depth, her emotion, would she even get a shot? Would record labels take a chance on a girl with a big voice, a deep soul, and no gimmicks? Or would she get lost in the noise? It's a tough question, right? Because today's world is so loud. So fast. So obsessed with likes and shares and trends. But here's what gives me hope. There are still people out there who crave something real. Something raw. Something true. And Connie? She was all of that. She was real. She was raw. She was true. And that kind of authenticity? It never goes out of style. So if her story moved you, even a little, let me know in the comments. Tell me what you think. Could someone like her break through in today's music scene? Or better yet, what's one Connie Francis song that takes you back? One that means something to you? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want more stories like this, stories about the women who shaped pop music, who built the foundation for everything we hear today, stick around. We've got a video coming up that dives into that world. Some names you'll recognize right away. Others you might not have heard of, but once you do, you'll wonder how you ever missed them. So don't go anywhere. And hey, if Connie's journey reminded you of your own story, or made you feel something, or just gave you a reason to smile today, go ahead and give this video a like. It really helps us keep sharing these kinds of stories with you. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We've got a lot more coming your way, more voices, more untold stories, more reasons to fall in love with music all over again. Because celebrating legends like Connie Francis? It's not just nostalgia. It's not just looking back. It's about honoring the strength, the struggle, the beauty of what came before us. It's about remembering that even in the darkest chapters, people can still rise. And Connie? She rose. She sang through the pain. She loved through the heartbreak. She lived through the silence. And in the end, she gave us something unforgettable. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And as Connie once sang so beautifully, everybody's somebody's fool. But in her case, she was nobody's victim. She was, and still is, a survivor, a superstar, and one of the greatest voices pop music has ever known.